How you doing, everybody? Hope you're having a good day today. A little cloudy out there right now. The fog hadn't burned off yet, but it's going to be a nice day. Any way you look at it, if you're alive, it's going to be a nice day. Now, some people don't look forward to it because maybe they're in pain or having other ailments or stuff like that. But if you were privileged to wake up this morning, God has given you another day that you can glorify Him. So keep those things in mind. The subject of the lesson is called Ignoring the Elderly. And we need to talk about this because we don't talk about it enough. And we should talk about it, and our young people should understand these things. In Leviticus 19, verse 32, it reads, "You shall rise up before the gray-headed and honor the aged, and you shall revere our God. I am the Lord." See, when you honor the elderly, when you honor those who are older, you are in effect showing reverence towards God because God commands it. And it seems that many people in our world are ignoring this great treasure, a treasure that could provide great benefits if we just paid attention. As we go through the various stages of life, we see this play out in many different ways. And one of the greatest treasures that we so often ignore and take for granted are the elderly. I mean, for most people today, they just assume get the elderly out of our sight. We don't want to see them. We get them out of our way. We don't want to have to deal with them. And that's how they're treated. And it's really sad that it's that way. You know, every now and then we see things where elderly people come in and you see the pictures of the elderly standing up on the bus or the subway, and all the kids sitting down playing with their cell phones, and nobody gets up and makes room for the elderly. They don't treat them with honor these days, and they're not taught to treat them with honor. That's the problem. Years ago, parents stopped teaching children to respect the elderly, respect their elders, respect authority. They stopped doing that. And now we see the result of that in our country today, as we see all these young people making all these stupid decisions and doing stupid things. You know, we have an example in the Old Testament. You know, after Solomon died, his son Rehoboam listened to the advice of the aged ones, his advisors, which was probably very good advice. But then he went and got all of his buddies and, hey, what do you think we should do? And they said, well, let's make some changes. Let's fundamentally change our nation. And guess what? The nation was destroyed in just a few years. And we have all these young people running around today destroying things and saying we need to make changes in our nation. We need to fundamentally change it. And in effect, if we look at that example, it's going to destroy our country that we live in. And of course, some people who might be listening to this are in countries that have already been destroyed, or they've already gone through some of this stuff. All right, so as we grow and mature, as we hear about things, how the elderly is mistreated and not taken care of, and it's really, really sad when a 19-year-old kid comes up and pops an 85-year-old man in the face for no reason. I mean, that's just sick. And believe me, God pays attention to that. God's going to get him back. There's no doubt about that. He's going to take care of that. And so it is sad our society fails to respect our elderly. See, they're the ones who brought us to where we are now. And it's the young people who are destroying it. See, all of our blessings are here because of what they went through. You know, the wars they fought and the efforts they went through to maintain the law and respect our flag, respect our nation, and respect others. And yes, there were problems along the way, and yeah, they eventually got over it. Some of them didn't, but eventually they did. And so there seems to be a common thread in our nation that once a person gets old and can no longer be productive, uh, they're not useful and they're really in the way and they're costing us. See, some of us appreciate the elderly because we are so close to being there ourselves. Some of us are getting there, some of us are already there, and we are hoping that people will respect us for our knowledge and our concern for others. See, we know that the world could learn a lot from us, and we certainly feel that if we were put in charge, a lot of common sense would return to our government and business. We have so much to offer that goes mostly ignored. See, the young people, they come in, they want to do things their way, and so the old people are just in the way. You know, I spent 30 years in a business, and what I saw was that the older ones usually had the answers to the problems and could remedy just about any situation, and they could give guidance to the younger sets. And as I was bringing on new people, I said, you pay attention to that guy. He knows what he's doing, and follow his example. And then, of course, as I came closer to retirement, of course, my views basically were ignored a lot, even though the bosses agreed that my views were right and the best course of action. See, the younger ones wanted to do it their way and did not take any concern for how others would take it or if it would even be profitable. And so, and then, of course, once the old guys are gone, they were forgotten and their sage advice was ignored. And that is one reason so many companies are losing ground in the marketplace, and a lot of companies have just basically died because they brought in this new younger set, which really didn't have any true understanding. Now, our elderly have much to offer us because of their experience. And then, of course, I guess our nature leads us to do things our own way, and we really don't want to hear from others. We don't like taking advice. And here's the problem, you know, even well-meaning Christians will try and give advice to younger, newer converts, and they are just ignored. Well, they don't know what they're talking about. And so, sure, the older ones, yeah, they made mistakes. They learned from those mistakes. And the younger, we know they're going to make mistakes, and hopefully they will learn from those mistakes. But the worst mistake is to refuse sage advice, advice given by the elderly. I mean, that is the worst mistake they can make. And so the Bible tells us we are to respect the elderly. In fact, God commands us to respect them. And, you know, something I would offer as maybe some advice to some young Christians who have young children. Spend some time allowing your children to be around some elderly people. And not just grandma and grandpa, because they're going to spoil them. But as the children grow up, they can learn things from the elderly. And I know I did growing up. I listened to those, especially those in the faith, who have basically gone through all the battlefields and had all the battles and discussions and the debates and trying to spread the gospel message. I mean, I learned a lot from them, and they had a lot to offer. And I really wish I'd spent more time with them as I was growing up. I probably could have matured a whole lot faster if I'd have done that. But anyway, we are to respect them. And young Christians, they want to just seem to ignore the elderly. They don't want to expose their children to the elderly, because when the elderly go along, they're having difficulty. They can't open things. They need assistance just to reach up into the cabinet and stuff like that. And so young parents, they're kind of nervous about letting their children see that. And it's a fact of life that, yeah, this is going to happen. And these young parents are going to be there someday. And what are their children going to do? They're basically going to ignore them and just ship them off to a home and just forget about them. I mean, we see that a lot. All right, so our world seems to want to be rid of them as soon as possible. You know, several years ago when the Affordable Health Care Act came out, one of the provisions in it was that the old age, rather than suffer the pain and problems of old age, and of course the expense of medical procedures, you know, it might be best just to consider choosing to end their life rather than put the burden on society. I mean, end of life planning, that was a requirement in the ACA. And once people get to a certain age, and of course they have their aches and pains, and it's like they're at a different doctor's office every other day, somebody was supposed to take them and counsel them on how to just end it all. I mean, that was in the law that was passed, and so that's how our society feels about these older ones. They don't want to take care of them. They're a burden. They cost us lots of money, and you know, one day we may be facing. You remember Logan's Run? Many years ago, once a person reached a certain age, they were terminated. And I mean, that's not right. Some people are very active and they can take care of themselves. I mean, I know some 90-year-olds that they get out, they drive around, they do things, and then, of course, I've seen some 60-year-olds bedridden because they were in such bad shape. So, I mean, it really matters on how active people are. And some people are very active all the way up into their 80s and 90s. And so, anyway, it's a society that they built, and they owe it to society. At least they think that we shouldn't be a burden upon it. And if you haven't figured out a lot of sarcasm right there, that's what it was. All right. So, in conclusion, let me say we need to respect the elderly. We can learn a lot from them. Young preachers can learn a lot from the older preachers. And I suggest that you do so. You spend time studying with them and learning from them and take their advice and follow it to the best of your ability. That is, if they're trying to be faithful and lead you towards God. I mean, you should be doing that. Now, it's going to seem that some of these older people are grumpy all the time. Well, it may appear that way, but most likely they're just in pain. They're trying to hide it. I mean, they hurt when they stand up. They hurt when they walk. They hurt when they sit. They hurt when they lie down. And yet they don't want to burden us with their problems, so they just go along, and so they may appear a little grumpy. But we just have to understand that. But anyway, here's the blessing I would put upon you. May the Lord bless you with the same respect someday with the respect you show to the elderly today. All right, think about that very carefully. If you show respect to the elderly today, perhaps they will show you respect. If you don't respect the elderly today, chances are when you get up to that certain age and you can't work anymore and you can't bring in an income, they're ready to get rid of you. And they'll either take you out and hire somebody to take you out, or they're going to put you in a home and just leave you there. Maybe come visit you. Maybe. See, we need to respect the elderly. God commands it. God commands us to respect the elderly and pay attention to them. They have so much to offer, and we can get a lot of encouragement from the elderly. I mean, they do. The elderly do offer words of appreciation for everything that we do, and so pay attention to them. Be nice to them. Be friends to them. Sit down and just listen. Let them talk, because some will want to talk about their younger days, and they did this, they did that, how they met their spouse, and stuff like that. Just listen. I mean, listening to them shows them so much respect, and rather than tell them what they need to do. So consider these thoughts, folks. I mean, it's important. We cannot ignore the elderly because they have so much to offer. At least the elderly Christians. Yeah, definitely them. They have so much to offer us. But even the older ones they learned quite a bit during their life, and they can share a lot of good advice if they will. And so consider those things, folks. It's very important. But anyway, I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a nice, blessed day. And Lord willing, we'll see you again tomorrow. All right, bye bye for now.